Have you ever wondered how a single decision can determine whether a civilization rises stronger or falls into chaos forever? What Islam's 1,400-year history says is that the greatest tests often arrive immediately after the greatest blessings, and few moments prove this truth more clearly than the Ridda Wars that followed the passing of Prophet Muhammad. The grief that settled over Medina was unlike anything the Muslim community had ever experienced. Hearts were overwhelmed with sorrow, and many believers struggled to imagine a future without the messenger of Allah guiding them directly. Yet while faithful Muslims mourned, powerful forces across the Arabian Peninsula saw what they believed was an opportunity. Tribal loyalties that had been restrained by faith began to reappear, ambitious leaders sought influence, and individuals claiming false prophethood attempted to gather followers by exploiting uncertainty. Some tribes refused to continue paying zakat, believing that their obligations had ended with the prophet's earthly life, while others openly abandoned their commitments to the Muslim community. What had once appeared to be a united Arabia suddenly stood on the edge of fragmentation, threatening not only political stability, but also the preservation of the divine message that had transformed countless lives. In this atmosphere of fear and confusion, every choice carried enormous consequences. The future of Islam depended on leadership that combined unwavering faith, wisdom, courage, patience, and complete trust in Allah above every worldly calculation. It was during this defining moment that Abu Bakr As-Siddiq, the closest companion of the Prophet and the first Caliph, accepted a responsibility unlike any faced before him. His heart carried profound sorrow, yet his belief remained firm because he understood that Allah's religion could never be abandoned due to hardship. Rather than allowing grief to weaken his resolve, he transformed faith into action and prepared to defend the unity of the Muslim Ummah. What Islam's 1,400-year history says is that true leadership does not emerge when circumstances are comfortable, but when uncertainty surrounds every path forward and the weight of responsibility rests upon one sincere servant of Allah. Many observers believe compromise would be the safest option, hoping that temporary concessions might prevent conflict and preserve peace. But Abu Bakr, recognized that compromising essential principles would only invite greater division and lasting instability. He understood that the refusal to fulfill obligations commanded by Allah threatened the very foundation of the Islamic community established through years of sacrifice, revelation, perseverance, and unwavering devotion. Every passing day allowed rebellion to spread farther, encouraging more tribes to question their commitments and strengthening those who wish to replace divine guidance with personal ambition. Arabia stood at a crossroads where every decision would echo throughout generations, and although the danger was immense, the remarkable story of steadfast faith, extraordinary courage, and decisive leadership was only beginning to unfold. As the flames of rebellion spread across Arabia, the challenge facing Abu Bakr As-Siddiq, became more dangerous with every passing day, and what Islam's 1,400-year history says is that the strongest believers remain steadfast when others surrender to fear. Reports arrived from distant regions describing tribes withdrawing their allegiance, refusing to pay zakat, and following individuals who falsely claimed prophethood in pursuit of power and personal glory. These rebellions were not isolated incidents, but a coordinated threat capable of tearing apart the unity that had been established through more than 2 decades of sacrifice under the guidance of Prophet Muhammad. The Muslim community was still grieving, resources were limited, and experienced warriors had only recently returned from previous struggles, making the situation appear almost impossible to overcome. Yet Abu Bakr, refused to allow despair to shape his decisions because his confidence rested entirely upon Allah rather than numbers, wealth, or military strength. He understood that preserving the pillars of Islam required courage that could not be measured by worldly standards. He firmly declared that no distinction could be accepted between prayer and zakat because both were commands from Allah, and abandoning either would weaken the very structure of the faith. This unwavering position inspired sincere believers who recognized that the survival of the Muslim Ummah depended upon protecting its principles before protecting personal comfort. Under his determined leadership, disciplined armies were organized and entrusted to capable commanders who possessed faith, wisdom, and remarkable principles before protecting personal comfort. Under his determined leadership, disciplined armies were organized and entrusted to capable commanders who possessed faith, wisdom, and remarkable military ability. Among them was Khalid ibn al-Walid, R.A., whose strategic brilliance would soon play a decisive role in confronting the growing rebellions across the Arabian Peninsula. Campaign after campaign unfolded across vast deserts, rugged valleys, and remote settlements where rebel forces believed they could challenge the authority of the caliphate without consequence. Every victory required endurance, careful planning, and complete reliance upon Allah, while every setback demanded renewed patience and stronger resolve. The battles were not fought for wealth, territory, or revenge, but to preserve the unity of the believers and defend the truth that had been revealed through the final messenger of Allah. Meanwhile, false prophets attempted to attract followers with empty promises, tribal pride, and deceptive claims, hoping to replace divine revelation with personal ambition. For a time, their influence appeared to grow, creating an atmosphere filled with uncertainty that caused many to wonder whether the fragile unity of Arabia could survive. The suspense deepened as multiple fronts demanded immediate attention, stretching the Muslim forces across enormous distances while the outcome remained uncertain. Every sunrise carried the possibility of another rebellion, another confrontation, or another critical decision capable of changing history forever. Yet what Islam's 1,400-year history says is that when sincere leadership is guided by unwavering faith and complete obedience to Allah, even the darkest moments become the beginning of extraordinary triumph, preparing the Muslim Ummah for a future that would soon extend far beyond the borders of Arabia itself. As the final rebellions were defeated and the influence of the false prophets faded, a remarkable transformation unfolded across the Arabian Peninsula, proving once again what Islam's 1,400-year history says is that sincere faith, steadfast leadership, and complete reliance upon Allah can overcome even the greatest trials. The unity that had seemed so fragile after the passing of Prophet Muhammad was restored through the determination of Abu Bakr As-Siddiq, R.A., whose unwavering commitment to justice and obedience to Allah preserved the foundations of Islam for every generation that followed. His victory was not merely a military achievement, but a spiritual triumph that reminded the believers that divine guidance must never be compromised for temporary peace or personal convenience. By confronting rebellion with wisdom, courage, and firm adherence to Islamic principles, he ensured that the Muslim Ummah remained united under the teachings of the Quran and the authentic Sunnah rather than divided by tribal ambitions or false claims of leadership. The success of the Ridda Wars also prepared the Muslim community for an entirely new chapter in history, because a united Arabia would soon carry the message of Islam far beyond its deserts, reaching distant lands and inspiring millions of hearts throughout the centuries. Every sacrifice made during those difficult days became part of a greater plan that demonstrated how Allah strengthens those who remain patient and faithful during times of hardship. The legacy of Abu Bakr, R.A., teaches that real leadership is not measured by popularity, comfort, or worldly success, but by the courage to uphold truth when compromise appears easier and fear surrounds every decision. His example continues to inspire believers to remain firm in their faith, fulfill their obligations sincerely, and trust that every challenge carries hidden wisdom known only to Allah. Even today, the lessons of the Ridda Wars remind us that communities remain strong only when they are united by faith, justice, honesty, and mutual responsibility rather than personal interests or temporary gains. History repeatedly shows that civilizations flourish when their moral foundations remain firm and decline when those foundations are neglected. The remarkable events following the prophets, passing stand as lasting evidence that sincere conviction can overcome confusion, that patience can outlast hardship, and that steadfast devotion to Allah always produces results far greater than human expectations. Every generation has its own tests, different in appearance but similar in purpose, calling believers to choose between fear and faith, division and unity, compromise and conviction. What Islam's 1,400-year history says is that those who remain loyal to Allah and His guidance during the most difficult moments become instruments through which future generations receive strength, hope, and direction. The Ridda Wars are therefore not only a story of battles won long ago, but a timeless reminder that faith, courage, and principled leadership can preserve truth even when the entire world seems uncertain. If you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.